The streetlights shimmered like 1,000 small moons against the quiet waters of Lakeshore Boulevard. Evening had folded itself gently over Austin, Texas, the sky melting from gold to indigo, and Nurse Pamela Albright was driving home from another 12-hour shift at St. Mary's Medical Center. Her eyes ached from the harsh white of hospital lights, her hands still smelled faintly of disinfectant, and her stomach grumbled for something more substantial than the granola bar she had gulped between patients. She rolled down her window, hoping the cool October breeze would wake her up. The lake to her left rippled like liquid glass, dotted with reflections of faraway buildings. It was her favorite part of the drive, calm, silent, a small slice of peace before the chaos of another day tomorrow. Then she saw him. At first, it was just a blur by the roadside, a figure slumped against a sleek black car. Pamela frowned. The car looked far too expensive for someone to be sleeping in. She slowed down, headlights sweeping over the scene. The man wasn't moving. Her heart skipped. "Oh my God," she whispered, pulling over quickly. She grabbed her first aid kit, a habit every nurse carried home, and rushed toward him. He was lying halfway on the pavement, half on the grassy verge, his skin pale under the harsh beam of her car light. His shirt was drenched with sweat. His lips had a bluish tint. Pamela knelt beside him, instincts taking over. "Sir? Can you hear me?" No response. She pressed 2 fingers against his neck. Weak pulse. Rapid and irregular. His breathing came in shallow bursts. "Cardiac distress," she muttered, scanning the scene. "Come on, stay with me." She tilted his head, checked for obstruction, then quickly retrieved an aspirin from her kit, sliding it between his lips. She called 911 with her other hand. "This is Nurse Pamela Albright from St. Mary's. I've got a male patient, mid-30s, unconscious, possible arrhythmia. I need an ambulance at Lakeshore Boulevard, near the water tower, now." "Help is on the way, ma'am," the operator said. Pamela stayed beside him, counting the beats, whispering words that made no sense but might keep him tethered. "Don't you dare quit on me, okay? You're going to make it. Just breathe." A faint groan escaped him, and his eyes flickered open, hazel, unfocused, full of confusion. "Why you stayed?" he mumbled weakly. "Yes, I'm right here. You're going to be fine." Then he went still again. Within minutes, the wail of sirens sliced through the silence. The paramedics arrived, and Pamela briefed them rapidly, her tone crisp and professional despite her racing pulse. "Good work," one of them said, recognizing her. "You coming along?" Pamela hesitated. Her shift had ended hours ago. But looking down at the man's pale face, something inside her refused to walk away. "Yes," she said. "I'm coming." The ambulance rattled down the city streets, red lights flashing against the night sky. Pamela kept her hand on the man's wrist, feeling each faint pulse as though counting his will to live. He was handsome, even unconscious, the kind of rugged, sharp-featured man you'd expect to see in a magazine ad. But there was something haunted about him, even in stillness. At the hospital, he was rushed straight into the ER. Pamela followed, giving detailed notes to the attending physician. When the team took over, she lingered by the door, unwilling to leave. Hours passed. Doctors worked, machines beeped, nurses whispered. By the time they wheeled him out of the trauma unit, it was past midnight. He was stable, sedated, and breathing evenly. Pamela finally let out a shaky breath. "Whoever you are," she murmured softly, "you got a second chance tonight." The next morning, sunlight spilled through the hospital blinds. Pamela had intended to go home, but ended up napping in the staff lounge, her head resting on her folded arms. When she awoke, Dr. Maya Green, her best friend, was grinning down at her. "Girl, you made headlines in the hospital chat groups," Maya teased. "You pulled a mystery man off the street last night?" Pamela rubbed her eyes. "Don't start. I was just doing my job." Maya laughed. "Oh, honey, this wasn't just a man. The guy you brought in. He's Raymond Jakes." Pamela blinked. "Who?" Maya gaped. "You don't know? He's the CEO of Jakes Innovations, the billionaire tech guy who funds half the clean energy projects in Texas." Pamela stared, speechless. "The billionaire?" "Yep. And word is, he's asking for the nurse who saved him." Pamela shook her head, groaning. No. Don't tell me he's one of those people who thinks gratitude equals a photo shoot or a donation." "Too late," Maya said with a grin. "He's awake and waiting. Room 204 smelled faintly of disinfectant and money. Even the flowers by the window looked expensive, white orchids instead of daisies. Raymond Jakes sat upright, his chest wrapped in monitors. His eyes, those same hazel eyes, lit up when Pamela walked in. "You're the nurse," he said quietly. "I'm Pamela Albright," she replied, keeping her tone professional. "How are you feeling?" "Alive," he said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Thanks to you." She checked his chart. "You had a cardiac arrhythmia, severe. You'll need to rest, eat less stress, more greens." He chuckled softly. "You sound like my mother." Pamela looked up. She must have been a smart woman then. Raymond's smile faded. She was. For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy but not awkward. He studied her face, soft eyes, rich brown skin, tired but strong. "Why did you stay?" he asked suddenly. "You could have gone home." Pamela hesitated, then shrugged. "Because if I'd been the one lying there, I'd have wanted someone to stay too." Something in her answer disarmed him. His usual defenses, the billionaire's pride, the careful distance, faltered. He reached for the table beside him, picked up an envelope. "Then let me do something for you. A token, maybe." "It's not much." She stopped him with a gentle shake of her head. "Please don't. I didn't do it for that." Raymond frowned. "It's just gratitude." "Then say thank you." "That's enough." For a long moment he stared at her, as though searching for the trick. Most people wanted something from him, favors, money, recognition. But this woman, she just wanted him to live. Pamela turned to leave. "You'll be monitored for 2 more days. If you feel dizzy or short of breath, press the call button." As she reached the door, his voice stopped her. "Pamela." She turned. "Thank you for staying." She smiled softly. "Try not to need saving again, okay?" Then she was gone, her white sneakers echoing down the corridor. That evening, Raymond sat by the hospital window, watching the city lights ripple across the lake. He had nearly died, and yet, the thing he couldn't stop thinking about wasn't death. It was her voice, her calm, her refusal to take anything from him. His assistant entered quietly. "Mr. Jakes, are you feeling better?" "Yes," Raymond said absently. "Better than I should." The assistant nodded. "Should I prepare your transport back home once the doctors clear you?" "Not yet," Raymond said. "There's something else I need." He turned toward the city lights, the reflection of himself faint in the glass, but behind it, a memory of her face lingered. "Find out everything," he said slowly, "about Nurse Pamela Albright." The lobby of St. Mary's Medical Center buzzed with the usual morning rhythm. Squeaky wheels of medicine carts, murmured patient updates, and the faint scent of disinfectant blending with brewed coffee. Pamela Albright signed off another patient's chart, trying to ignore the whispers that floated around the nurse's station. "Did you see him again? They say he owns a whole tech empire. I heard he came here in a private chopper yesterday." Pamela rolled her eyes. Gossip was like static, always present, never useful. She had more important things to do than wonder whether Texas's most elusive billionaire remembered the nurse who pulled him from the roadside. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done playing games. 2 weeks later, the hospital was abuzz with reporters outside and administrators pacing nervously. A huge banner had just been unfurled at the main entrance. Jakes Innovations donates $5 million to St. Mary's Heart Health Program. Pamela froze mid-step. "No," she muttered. He wouldn't. But there he was, Raymond Jakes, standing at the podium, suit crisp, expression calm but searching. Cameras flashed, reporters clamored. And when his eyes finally found hers in the crowd, the world went quiet. She felt her pulse quicken. That same pulse she'd checked on him the night he almost died. After the ceremony, she tried to slip away quietly. "No such luck. Miss Albright," a deep voice called behind her. She turned. He stood there, smiling in that understated, dangerous way, not with arrogance, but with recognition. "You saved my life," he said, stepping closer. "The least I could do was save a few others." Pamela folded her arms. "That's very noble of you, Mr. Jakes, but if this donation was some kind of repayment—" "It wasn't," he interrupted gently. "It was inspiration." She stared at him, uncertain whether to believe that. "Well, then I'm glad your heart scare came with a silver lining." He chuckled. "Can I buy you coffee?" "As a thank you, not as a bribe." Pamela hesitated, but his sincerity disarmed her again. Fine, she said finally. One coffee. But after my shift. Deal, he said. I'll be waiting. The cafe near Lady Bird Lake was small, with soft jazz playing and the faint smell of cinnamon in the air. Pamela arrived late, expecting him to be impatient. But Raymond was still there, sleeves rolled up, reading a paperback novel. Surprised? He asked as she sat down. Honestly, yes. You don't seem like the paperback type. He smiled. I wasn't. But the doctor banned me from screens for a month. Pamela laughed, a sound so bright it made him forget the world outside. They talked for hours. About everything and nothing. He told her about his company, how he'd started Jake's Innovations in his college dorm, built it from scratch, and lost friends to greed along the way. She told him about her mother, battling diabetes, living in Houston, and how she sent her every spare dollar she could. You work 2 shifts and still send money home? He asked softly. Pamela shrugged. Family doesn't stop being family when things get hard. He watched her, admiration flickering in his gaze. You know, people in my world don't think like that anymore. Maybe they should, she said, sipping her latte. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights reflected on the lake like melted gold, and something wordless settled between them, a shared quiet, fragile but real. Over the next few weeks, Raymond kept finding reasons to visit the hospital, a follow-up test here, a donation meeting there. Pamela saw right through it. You're not due for another checkup, she said one afternoon, eyeing him skeptically. He grinned. Maybe I'm just addicted to hospital food. Please. Nobody's addicted to hospital food. He laughed, and that laugh began to echo in her mind long after he left. Still, she fought it. She had seen men like him before, smooth, charming, untouchable. But Raymond wasn't playing a part. He asked about her patients, remembered small details, even helped arrange free treatment for a heart patient who couldn't afford surgery. Each time she saw him, her walls crumbled a little more. One evening, after his checkup, they walked along the water near the hospital. The air was cool, and the wind carried the faint scent of rain. You're not what I expected, she said quietly. He glanced at her. And what did you expect? A spoiled billionaire who thinks the world owes him something. He smiled faintly. That used to be me. Until I lost someone. Pamela looked at him, really looked. Who? He hesitated. My fiancé. 3 years ago. I had a heart scare during a meeting. She panicked. Left before I even woke up. I'm sorry, Pamela said softly. He shrugged. I learned 2 things that day. 1, I wasn't invincible. And 2, love without loyalty isn't love. Pamela nodded, her throat tightening. That must have hurt. It did, he admitted. Then he turned to her, his gaze steady. Until you showed up on that road. She blinked, startled. Raymond, I don't know what this is, he said. But I haven't felt this alive in a long time. Pamela's heart stuttered. She wanted to say something, anything, but words refused to come. Instead, she smiled faintly and whispered, Maybe you just needed a better nurse. He laughed softly. Maybe. Weeks passed. Their meetings became regular. Coffee on her breaks, dinners after shifts, late-night calls when neither could sleep. Raymond's cousin Charles Jakes, however, wasn't amused. You're the face of a billion-dollar company, Ray, Charles sneered during a board meeting. Dating a nurse? How do you think the media will spin that? Raymond's jaw tightened. As love, I hope. Or maybe decency, if the world still knows the word. She's after your money, Charles said coldly. They always are. Raymond stood. You don't know her. And you don't know me. He left before Charles could respond, slamming the door behind him. That night, Pamela's mother collapsed in Houston. The hospital bills stacked high, more than Pamela could manage. Desperate, she applied for an emergency loan and called Raymond for comfort. The next morning, the bills were mysteriously cleared. The nurse at the Houston hospital said, some anonymous donor handled it. Pamela didn't need to guess who. When Raymond showed up at the cafe that evening, she was waiting, hurt written all over her face. You paid for my mother's treatment, she said, voice trembling. He hesitated. I just wanted to help. I didn't ask for your money, she snapped. Do you think I'm some charity project? Pamela, no, he said quickly. That's not what I meant. You went behind my back. You made me feel small. Her eyes glistened. You don't get it, do you? I help people because it's right. You help people because it makes you feel good. He stepped closer, voice breaking. That's not true. I did it because I couldn't stand watching you suffer alone. Pamela turned away, tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't want your pity, Raymond. Then what do you want? He asked, desperate. She met his eyes she once found comfort in, and whispered, I just wanted you to see me, not fix me. Then she walked away. It rained that night. The kind of Texas rain that soaked the soul and washed the streets clean. Pamela sat by her apartment window, watching lightning split the sky. Her phone buzzed, Raymond's name. She ignored it. Then came the knock. When she opened the door, he stood there, drenched, breathless, eyes raw with emotion. Raymond, you'll get sick. I don't care, he said hoarsely. If you want me gone, I'll go. But I had to tell you. He took a deep breath. I've never felt this alive since the night you found me on that road. You made me believe I could still feel something real. Tears blurred her vision. He stepped closer. I'm not trying to buy you, Pamela. I'm trying to deserve you. For a long moment, the rain spoke for both of them, steady, relentless, cleansing. Pamela's resolve crumbled. She stepped aside, voice soft as thunder rolled outside. Come in before you catch pneumonia. Raymond smiled faintly, a smile of relief, of surrender, and walked in. As she closed the door behind them, the rain beat harder against the glass, but inside, something fragile began to bloom. The morning sun spilled over the Texas skyline like liquid gold, bathing everything in warmth, except the headlines. Billionaire Raymond Jakes in love with his nurse? From heart attack to heartthrob, the billionaire and the black nurse who saved him. Pamela stared at the newspaper, her stomach twisting. The photo splashed across the page was of her and Raymond, walking out of a restaurant the night before, her laughter frozen midair, his arm protectively around her. She slammed the paper shut. Great. Now I'm public property. Her phone buzzed again, texts, calls, social media notifications. She turned it off. When she reached work that morning, eyes followed her. Some smiled knowingly, others whispered. Dr. Maya caught up to her near the break room. Pam, you okay? I'm fine, Pamela said stiffly. Just tired of being news. Maya frowned. You didn't do anything wrong. Tell that to the internet, Pamela muttered. At Jake's Innovations, the situation wasn't any calmer. Raymond sat in his glass-walled office, the city sprawling beneath him. Across the desk, his cousin Charles Jakes wore a smug grin. You've really done it now, Charles said. The board is panicking. Our investors are calling this a PR nightmare. Because I fell in love? Raymond asked coldly. Because you fell in love with a nurse. Charles snapped. You think our shareholders will respect that? Raymond's eyes darkened. You think love has a resume requirement? Charles leaned forward. Wake up, Ray. She's beneath you. You've worked too hard to throw it all away for a woman who saved my life, Raymond cut in sharply. And she's worth more than every dollar in this building. Charles stood abruptly. You'll regret this. Maybe, Raymond said quietly, but I'll regret losing her more. That evening, Pamela was leaving the hospital when a crowd of reporters swarmed near the gate. Cameras flashed. Pamela, is it true you're engaged to Raymond Jakes? Are you after his fortune? How does it feel dating a billionaire? Pamela shielded her face. Please, I have nothing to say. A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Yes, she does. She has a life. Raymond stepped out of his car, taking her hand. And I'd appreciate it if you all respected that. The reporters quieted, for a moment. The sight of his fingers laced through hers said everything words couldn't. Inside the car, Pamela exhaled shakily. You didn't have to do that. I did, he said softly. If the world wants to see us, they'll see the truth. She looked at him, really looked. And what truth is that? He smiled faintly. That I'm the luckiest man alive. But not everyone was rooting for them. Charles wasn't done. He began leaking rumors, fake stories about Pamela, suggesting she'd been paid off by Raymond, that she was pregnant for money. The tabloids devoured it. The pressure grew. Raymond's board demanded a statement, the company's stock dipped, and Pamela began receiving hate messages online. One evening, she sat on the couch of Raymond's penthouse, scrolling through her phone, face pale. He entered quietly and saw the comments, vile words, cruel memes. Pamela, stop reading that, he said gently. She looked up, eyes glistening. Maybe your cousin's right. Maybe this was a mistake. Your world and mine, they don't mix. Raymond sat beside her, taking her trembling hands. Do you remember what you told me the night I collapsed? She frowned faintly. I said, don't you dare quit on me. He smiled softly. Exactly. So don't quit on us. Pamela's voice broke. It's not easy, Raymond. I can handle being poor. I can handle tired. But this, being hated for loving you, it's breaking me. He pulled her close, whispering into her hair. Then let me take some of the weight. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. In that moment, she realized he wasn't just the man she saved. He was the man willing to fight for her. A week later, Raymond arranged a quiet evening. He told her to meet him somewhere familiar. When Pamela arrived at Lakeshore Boulevard, the night air was still and cool, just like the evening they first met. The road was lit with strings of soft golden lights. At the exact spot where he had once collapsed, Raymond stood waiting, dressed simply, holding a single white rose. She smiled despite herself. You remembered. I never forgot, he said softly. Because this is where everything began. He stepped closer. You found me broken that night, Pamela. You didn't know who I was. You didn't care. You just saved me. She blinked back tears as he dropped to one knee. And now I want to spend the rest of my life saving you right back. From loneliness, from doubt, from everything this world throws our way. He opened a small velvet box. Inside gleamed a simple diamond ring, delicate and timeless. Pamela Albright, he said, voice trembling. You brought me back to life once. Will you do it forever? For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she nodded, laughing through tears. Yes, Raymond. Forever. The applause startled her, hospital staff, friends, even Maya, all hiding nearby. The lights shimmered, and the lake reflected their silhouettes as he slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, soft, reverent, full of promise. The chapel sat quietly in the heart of the Texas countryside, surrounded by rolling fields dusted with wildflowers in full bloom, sun-kissed yellows, gentle blues, and purples swaying softly in the breeze. The sky stretched wide and unclouded, the kind of deep, endless blue that seemed to bless everything beneath it. The faint hum of cicadas drifted through the air, a lazy summer melody mingling with the rustle of leaves and the flutter of lace ribbons tied along the pews. Inside, the chapel glowed with natural light pouring through stained glass, painting the wooden walls with soft hues of rose and gold. Every seat was filled. Nurses from St. Mary's, Raymond's company staff, a few close friends, and family who had traveled miles to witness what felt like the closing of one story and the beginning of another. At the far end of the aisle, Raymond Jake stood tall in a classic navy suit, his hands clasped, his heart thundering. For all his years in boardrooms and under the flash of cameras, nothing had ever made him this nervous. His cousin Charles, now humbled, sat quietly behind him, head bowed in what might have been remorse or respect. Then the music began. Every conversation hushed as Pamela Albright appeared at the chapel entrance. She was radiant. Her ivory gown flowed like water, simple yet elegant, the fabric catching the light in delicate ripples. A soft veil framed her face, and her curls were pinned with tiny pearls that glimmered like morning dew. On her arm was her mother, walking proudly, her eyes brimming with tears, her smile trembling with joy. For her, this was more than a wedding, it was a miracle. Her daughter, the healer of others, finally being cherished in return. Raymond's breath caught the moment Pamela stepped into the aisle. Every step she took toward him seemed to erase the months of chaos, the rumors, the sleepless nights. He saw only her, the woman who had knelt beside a stranger on a lonely road and changed the course of both their lives. When she finally reached him, he leaned forward slightly, voice soft but steady. You're breathtaking, he whispered. Pamela smiled, her eyes gleaming with affection and mischief. Took you long enough to notice. The guests chuckled quietly, the tension melting into warmth. Then the minister began, his voice calm, rich with reverence. The world outside faded until there was nothing but their joined hands and the trembling promises that followed. Their vows weren't elaborate or rehearsed. They were honest, unguarded, spoken from hearts that had been broken and rebuilt. Pamela's voice wavered, emotion threading through every word. When I met you, you were fighting to breathe. And somehow, in saving you, I found my own breath again. You are my second chance at love, and at life. You taught me that healing isn't only for the body. It's for the heart, too. Her mother dabbed at her eyes in the front row. Even the minister paused for a moment, visibly moved. Raymond swallowed hard, his voice low but steady. I fell once, and I thought it was the end. But then I looked up, and there you were. You didn't know who I was. You didn't care. You just saved me. You've shown me that love isn't built in boardrooms or headlines. It's built in grace, patience, and second chances. For a moment, silence hung in the air, the kind of silence that speaks louder than applause. Then came the words everyone waited for. By the power vested in me, you may now kiss the bride. Raymond smiled through tears, lifting Pamela's veil with trembling hands. When their lips met, the room erupted, laughter, cheers, applause, and the soft strains of the chapel bells blending into one joyous sound. Maya, standing among the bridesmaids, hooped louder than anyone. The nurses from St. Mary's threw handfuls of flower petals. Even the minister smiled wide, as though witnessing the simplest, purest truth there is: love finding its way home. Outside, as they stepped into the sunlight hand in hand, the breeze picked up, carrying the scent of wildflowers and new beginnings. The lake in the distance shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, the same lake that had mirrored their story from the start. Pamela looked up at him, laughter in her eyes. So, Mr. Jakes, what's next? He grinned, squeezing her hand. Forever, Mrs. Jakes. Just forever. The crowd cheered as they walked through a rain of petals, hearts light, souls whole, and futures forever intertwined. They chose somewhere far from headlines, away from skyscrapers and whispers, a place where time moved slowly and love could breathe. Their honeymoon led them to the Caribbean coast of Belize, where the ocean shimmered like liquid sapphire and the air carried the scent of salt and hibiscus. A secluded villa sat perched above the turquoise waves, surrounded by swaying palms and a horizon so wide it seemed to erase everything that had ever hurt them. For once, there were no reporters, no board meetings, no phones buzzing with chaos. Only the soft hum of the sea and the quiet rhythm of two hearts rediscovering peace. The first morning, Pamela woke to the sound of gulls and the gentle crash of waves against the shore. Sunlight spilled through gauzy curtains, painting golden streaks across the white sheets. Raymond was already awake, sitting on the terrace with a cup of coffee, his shirt unbuttoned, his expression thoughtful as he stared at the sea. She walked up behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. "Penny for your thoughts?" she murmured. He smiled, turning slightly to meet her gaze. "I was just thinking, this is the first time in years I've woken up without checking the stock market." She laughed softly, resting her chin on his shoulder. "You're healing, Mr. Jakes." He turned his head, kissed her temple, and whispered, "No, Mrs. Jakes, I'm finally living." Days drifted like gentle tides. They explored hidden beaches, where the sand was cool beneath their feet and the water kissed their ankles. Pamela wore a flowing sundress that fluttered in the breeze. Raymond carried her sandals, claiming she didn't need to walk on anything but beauty. At night, they dined under canopies of lanterns and stars, the ocean whispering in the background. The chef brought them dishes made from local spices and freshly caught fish. Between bites, they shared laughter, stories, and glances that said more than words ever could. Pamela teased him about his terrible attempts at dancing on the sand, while he teased her about how she couldn't stay away from her camera, capturing everything from seashells to sunsets. But the most beautiful thing she captured wasn't in her lens. It was the way Raymond looked at her, like she was both sunrise and home. One evening, as twilight wrapped the island in shades of lavender and gold, they took a small boat out onto the water. The lake-like calmness reflected the fading sky, and Raymond rowed gently, stopping near the center. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a smooth stone, carved with the words "still breathing." Pamela frowned softly, touched. "You kept it." "I carried it every day," he said, his voice low, the waves rocking them gently. "The day you found me, you told me not to quit. I didn't, because you made me remember why life was worth fighting for." Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for his hand. "You don't owe me anything, Raymond. You saved me too, just in a different way." They sat there in silence, watching the horizon melt into the sea, the world's edges dissolving into peace. Then he leaned forward, kissed her deeply, and whispered, "Here's to forever. No more headlines, no more battles. Just us." She smiled through tears. "Forever sounds perfect." Their last night on the island was lit by moonlight. The wind moved through the palm leaves, the waves hummed like a lullaby, and laughter drifted from the villa. Hers bright and genuine, his low and unguarded. They danced barefoot on the sand, the hem of her white dress brushing against the surf. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, and for once, they didn't think about what came next. Because in that moment, between the sea and the stars, they had everything. Love had not just found them, it had rebuilt them. The Texas morning was soft and golden, the kind that painted the horizon with promise. The Jakes estate, once known for grand parties and boardroom meetings, now echoed with something far more meaningful: laughter. Pamela stood on the back porch, barefoot, cradling a mug of tea as the wind teased her hair. The wildflowers Raymond had planted last spring now bloomed wildly across the field. Sunflowers, bluebonnets, and tiny white daisies stretching toward the light. From the garden, she could hear him, Raymond, arguing good-naturedly with the gardener about the proper way to trim a hedge. He'd traded suits for rolled-up sleeves, and the only stock he seemed interested in these days was the one growing tomatoes by the fence. "Mr. Billionaire, I don't think hedge trimming counts as innovation," she called out with a grin. He turned mock-offended, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I'll have you know this is green technology at its finest." She laughed, shaking her head. "You've really changed, you know." He walked up the porch steps and kissed her cheek, his arm circling her waist. "Maybe. Or maybe I just finally became the man you saw when I couldn't even see myself." Inside the house, framed photos lined the walls, not of boardrooms or luxury events, but of moments. Their wedding day, the honeymoon sunset, Pamela's mother smiling with a spark in her eyes again. And right in the center, a simple picture: Raymond and Pamela sitting by Lady Bird Lake, barefoot, sharing a milkshake. The world had moved on from their scandal. The tabloids found new stories, the internet found new distractions. But Raymond and Pamela found something better: balance. He'd stepped back from being CEO, naming a trusted partner to lead Jake's innovations. Instead, he and Pamela launched a foundation, the Albright Jake's Heart Initiative, funding free cardiac screenings and care for underprivileged communities across Texas. When asked in interviews what inspired the project, Raymond always smiled and said, "A nurse who refused to quit and taught me how to live." That afternoon, they drove to the city for a small clinic opening funded by their foundation. As they cut the ribbon together, cameras clicked, not with gossip this time, but with respect. A young nurse approached Pamela afterward, eyes shining. "Ma'am, your story, it gave me courage to apply here. I wanted to help like you do." Pamela's heart swelled. "Then you already are." From a few steps away, Raymond watched her, the same way he had on the day they met. She caught his gaze, and for a moment the world faded again. He mouthed, "Still breathing?" She smiled softly. "Always." That evening, they returned home just as the sun dipped low, turning the sky into a canvas of fire and rose. Raymond set up a small picnic on the porch, candles, music, her favorite peach cobbler. Pamela leaned against him, head on his shoulder. "It's strange," she whispered. "After everything we went through, I don't miss the chaos. I just miss the quiet moments that came after." He kissed her forehead. "Then we'll keep making them." She turned, eyes shining. "Promise?" He smiled. "Forever." As the stars blinked awake above the Texas sky, Pamela realized something profound. Love didn't have to be perfect or loud or celebrated. It only had to be true. And theirs was. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do well to like, share, and subscribe to Boundless Echoes for more inspirational and heartfelt stories. We deeply appreciate your support. Comment where you are watching us from, so we can give you a shout out. See you in our next video.